Hello, friend. This is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk to you about dealing with anxiety. Today I was listening to a gentleman explain how he had an anxiety attack, and this is not your stereotypical person with anxiety. It's just mediocre, but they're just worried about stuff. And no, this is somebody who's ultra successful, ultra high performing. They're not lazy. They're not sitting around just fretting all day. But and this is a common theme, and it doesn't matter what the person's success level is, if they have anxiety attacks, the thing he kept describing, and the thing other people have described over the years, is they were worrying about something. They were thinking about something. And see, this is why it's so important that you follow Philippians 4:8. I stress that so much, but you can't get an anxiety attack if you're only focused on the things that are good and of good report, that are lovely. You have to stray away from that into worry and fear and anxiety to even get to the point of being able to have an anxiety attack. It's that lack of discipline in the mind where you allow yourself to start worrying and fretting over something that leads to that. And it's interesting because Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow. Now, he wasn't saying don't think about, don't plan, don't make any preparations. The thought there means anxiety. Don't be worried. Don't be anxious about tomorrow. And this corresponds with the scripture that says we are to cast our care, our anxieties, our worries on him, for he careth for us. This is very important. If you can learn to rein in your thoughts, to not just let them go wild, not just let whatever random thought come in and you just allow it in and start thinking about it even more, meditating on it more. But if you really rein stuff in and redirect thoughts that are not good, they're not lovely, to good thoughts, at first it might take you a little while. It might take you a lot of tries. You might have to redirect thoughts 1,000 times a day. That's all right. Because at some point you will start to make progress. And maybe the first day you had to redirect your thoughts 1,000 times. Maybe the next day it's only 900. And then 800 the next day. And then maybe 500. And then at some point you start getting good where it's only a few dozen a day. And you really start making progress. But the important thing is, in regards to anxiety, you can't be anxious and worried and fretting and panicked or having anxiety attacks if you have taken to heart this idea and have understood that I am going to have a positive thought life. I'm not going to allow these other thoughts to rise up, and if they do, I don't give them a single second of attention except to cast them out and redirect that thought to something that is something I want to think about, something that's lovely, something that's of good report. Now, I know people say, well, that's too simplistic. You don't understand. It's my diet. And well, start eating a good diet then. If you want to blame your anxiety attacks on your diet, then stop eating trash. I've never known someone eating a good vegan diet who's not taking in like a bunch of junk foods and junk like that, but just a fresh, healthy vegan diet who is having anxiety attacks. It's always people who are eating meat and dairy and eggs and all that garbage and a bunch of processed foods and a bunch of sodas and energy drinks and coffee and junk. And among the vegans, it's people eating the junk foods, the vegan junk foods, and eating a lot of sugar, processed sugar, and all kinds of processed foods. But they think because it's vegan, that makes it somehow better. Well, it is better ethically, of course. You're not harming other sentient beings. But for health-wise, it's still terrible for you. It may be better than the animal-based versions, but it's still not good. So if you're saying, well, it's my diet, then correct your diet. Why come to a conclusion that you think is true and you make no effort to change it? My friend, you can't be going through life like that. If you find the cause of an issue in your life, immediately take the steps to rectify that. Don't wait, don't delay, don't try to get more information. You changing your diet from an unhealthy, processed food, junk food, sodas and energy drinks and coffee and all this stuff kind of diet to one that's a healthy vegan diet with fresh plants and vegetables and fruits, that's a no-brainer. That obviously is going to be better for you. And if that is what's causing you, notice you eat some of these junk foods and you have a panic attack, then start making the changes immediately. Don't just say, well, I know the problem, but then do nothing about it. Because at that point, you're just choosing to have another anxiety attack. If you think that's the case. Because you're not making any effort to change what you believe to be the cause of the problem. Now, with that all being said, while diet certainly can have an impact, it's still a matter of you controlling your mind. Renewing your mind to the truth, renewing your mind to things that are good, things that are lovely, and controlling your thought life so you're not thinking about things that are worryful, that bring anxiety. Because you can eat a perfect diet, but if you mentally have a diet that is worry and fear and anxiety, how are you going to avoid having another anxiety attack? And I shouldn't have to say this, but this is not medical advice or counseling advice or blah, blah, blah. Boring legal disclaimer, fill in the blank. But this is basic stuff. If you're going through your life constantly thinking and worrying about stuff, and you have anxiety attacks regularly, understand the obvious cause is the fact you keep thinking about these things that you shouldn't be thinking about. And I've talked to so many people over the years who say they have anxiety attacks, and it's all the same. Now, some will talk about their diet, some will talk about this and that, some will talk about stress, but it all boils down to the same thing, is that they kept pondering and meditating and fretting over certain thoughts. They didn't get rid of them immediately. They didn't redirect them to something positive. They kept on that same line of negative thinking, of worried thinking, of fearful thinking, of anxious thinking, and then they got the harvest of an anxiety attack. Perhaps there are other causes, but I've never seen somebody go from a perfect, good, high vibration, positive mindset into an anxiety attack. It doesn't happen. And if you're watching this and you have anxiety attacks, you know that's the case. I've talked to enough people, have a big enough sample of people who I've talked to, not one of them was redirecting their thoughts to positive things. Some of them may have tried a little bit, but for the most part, they were just allowing the thoughts to roam and range and find more negative thoughts to bring alongside them. And they just got themselves into a point to where it led to that awful event. Now, this is not criticism. This is advice to hopefully help you recognize the problem and solve it. Yes, correct your diet if you believe that's the problem. Even if you don't believe that's the problem, it could be a contributing factor. And your diet is very important in all kinds of other areas. So make sure you're on a high vibration vegan diet. That's basic stuff. But as far as this issue specifically relates, make sure that you're controlling your mental diet and you have the right, positive, high vibration, good and lovely thoughts always filling your mind. Not negativity, not anxiety, not fear, not worry. If any of those kind of thoughts rise up, you cast them down, you bring them into captivity to the obedience of Christ, and then you immediately find a good thought to think and start thinking about that. And my friend, if you need someone to talk to, let me know. You can feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to be a blessing for you and help you really get to focusing on the goodness of God in your life and all the blessings you have and how life is great and worth living. I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.